Hey, Emmy, how's it going?
Yes, hello. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. How's everything in Saudi today?
It's not start. The day is not started, I think.
That's true. It's just it's like 6 o'clock there, right? It's very early.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Nice,
How
nice.
how are you,
Good.
Farhan?
Today was
Yes,
so long.
Farhan.
Yani, today was
Yes.
a very long day. We had I had so much work. I woke up maybe 5:30, went to work at 6, and then didn't come home until 8:30 just 1.5 hours ago. So, yeah, it was a busy day today, but that's life.
Mm.
Nothing crazy. Hey, Wilson, how's it going?
Hey, Farhan. I'm
Good to
doing
see
well, thank
you.
you.
How was your day today?
Um, it was good. And how about you?
Yeah, it was good. I was telling Emmy I had a very long day, so finally I'm getting to relax a little bit, just not doing work, just speaking with you guys to me is not work, it's fun. So, after many long hours, I'm finally relaxing. So it's good. It was a nice day. How was your day?
Um, Something busy, but yeah, I was leveraging my free time.
Nice. It's good to leverage free time. Did you take a number of other classes on Colingo?
Yeah, actually, I took two classes.
Two classes before this one, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Nice. Because you try to, I think you said your goal was to take three per day.
Yes.
Nice, nice. That's really good. Emmy, do you have a goal of how many classes do you usually take per day on Colingo?
It's a long, it's many classes actually because I didn't start my work yet.
Uh-huh.
So as possible as I can.
As much as
Uh,
possible?
Yes, as much as possible. Uh, I take classes. I think it's five classes or six
Five or
a
six a
day.
day. Oh, wow. So that's a significant, that's six
Yes,
hours of classes, 6 hours of
yes.
classes.
But
Yeah.
I didn't show improvement for myself. I think until
I
now.
think you showed improvement in my class, and at least in the hour class that we have every night, you know. I mean, it's not going to be something instant, right? It's going to take time, maybe a
Yes,
few weeks, a few months, maybe even.
yes, maybe I think that.
Yeah. The
Uh,
more you speak, the more you'll get better.
yes. I hope your articles today is not like yesterday.
Which
It
one?
was so
Oh,
hard.
the
Yes,
African
but
design?
yes,
Yeah.
I said, oh, Farhan, why you choose this? Your articles are very interesting and very nice and very easy. Yesterday it was very hard to understand it.
Sometimes I throw in some hard ones also, right? To keep it interesting, to keep it exciting,
Yes,
you know? Yeah, I
I
think
think
today's is
today
much
is
easier.
it's hard today, but it's a challenge.
Yeah, definitely.
We must face it.
I don't want you guys to think I'm easy. Just, oh, let's go to Farhan's class. He's always easy, you know? But that can't happen. But no, I think most of the time, especially yesterday with the African class, I think it was interesting. I mean, people don't talk about that kind of stuff very frequently, which makes it more exotic, more different, and I don't know. Sometimes I think that's a challenge. So it's good to have that.
Yes, I like that you always give us interesting information and a lots of information and knowledge about the world.
Yeah.
But it was hard yesterday. Lots of vocabularies and uh, I didn't understand it.
What?
I just
So
make
was
my opinions about general things.
Yeah, that's good though. That's always a first step. That's always the first step, right? So if an article is difficult for you or if an idea is difficult, right, begin by thinking about the general idea, right? So it was about art. You saw some of the pictures, right? You saw some of
Yes.
the things that we were talking about. And if you can make initial opinions or initial thoughts about those things, you know, maybe when you have time, if you want, you can go back and you can find what some of
Yes.
those different vocabulary words mean, you know, things like that.
Yes, I save it my computer
Yeah,
for future.
that's
If
really
I
good
saw,
too.
yes, if I saw myself good, perfect after a few weeks,
Yeah,
maybe I will return back and read it again.
absolutely. And Huffington Post, some of these magazines are much, much more challenging than the other magazines, for example.
Yes, you told me a lot of two kinds, I think, of newspaper.
Yeah,
Um,
I love the two magazines. I love the Christian Science Monitor. Christian Science Monitor is very good. Let me write the name here. Also, I like the Huffington Post, right? So both of those magazines, the Financial Times also, very, very good magazine. I used to really like The Economist, but The Economist, after reading many of their articles, they don't have proof for what they say. A lot of the pieces they sound like just opinions and no facts, you know, or limited facts, kind of like just people writing what they feel without looking at something objectively from a third-party perspective, you know. So that magazine I don't like so much, but Christian Science Monitor, Huffington Post definitely, the Financial Times, Wall Street Journal is pretty good, New York Times, those are good, but those are much more academic. Um,
mhm.
if you want normal Americans, you know, conversational English in written form, I think Huffington Post is the best, absolutely the best. Um, if you can understand everything you see in Huffington Post, then you can speak very comfortably with anybody on the street in the U.S., with young people, with the college population, uh, you know, or you can understand them also. You can not only speak with them, you can understand them, have those vocabulary, have that similar understanding of the vocabulary also. So yeah, there's some benefit in that, of course. So let's see. I'm gonna just put these down for you guys. Let's see. These are all really good. New York Times, Washington Post are going to be much more academic, you know, much more news. Oh, I forgot the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal is going to be very financial. You know, a lot of the Wall Street Journal is difficult for me sometimes, you know, because you have to have a very good economic background for some of the more difficult articles that they speak about. So it's good though. It's good. I'm glad you guys like this classes, and some of them are challenging. That's always good.
Yes, it's not about normal things. It's give us knowledge.
That's the idea.
Yes,
So
I like it because it's give us knowledge about a lots of mm,
different topics almost.
yes topics.
Uh-huh. So actually, guys, we'll get started because it's about 10 minutes, and today's article is a little different, and I want to spend some time on it. Before we start the article, of course, let us take a quick look at the lesson for today. And today's lesson, we are going to be focusing on listening and talking about listening and talking about polite questions. Okay, so how do we make questions politely in English, right? This is an important part of conversation because many times if you find yourself in a new society or you find yourself talking to people from another culture, you have to speak with them, you have to ask them questions, and you should know how to ask questions in a polite manner so that people respect you and uh, they honor you as somebody who is, their friend, their guest, those kinds of things. So the first way to, I guess one of the main ways that we make polite questions in English is we use words like could, right? So, for example, if you want to speak directly to somebody, let's say you're speaking to your friend, to your brother or sister, maybe to your parents, right? You can just say, for example, will you clean this table? Maybe the table is dirty. Will you clean this table? Or you can just say, clean this table. That's a command. Clean this table, right? A polite way to say that is, could you please clean this table, right? So we're introducing could, and we're also introducing please, right? So please makes the sentence immediately more polite, right? Using words like please, using words like could, immediately make the sentence much more polite. So could you please clean the table? Could you please turn off the lights, right? Those are all examples of asking polite questions, right? And one of the best ways that I find whenever we are talking about polite questions is imagine a scenario, okay? Don't just think of, it's difficult to think of polite questions just imagining them. Because you don't, I mean, if I'm sitting here right now, what's a polite question? What's a polite question? It's more difficult. So think of yourself in a scenario. Think of yourself, for example, in a restaurant, right? How would you ask questions politely in a restaurant setting? Or, for example, let's say you're on a bus or you're on the street and you need to get somewhere, but you're lost, right? How do you ask for directions? How do you ask for help, right? Those kinds of scenarios will help you practice asking polite questions much more easily. So let's start with that. Wilson, let's say you're at a restaurant and somebody comes over and let's say the waiter who's supposed to be serving you food, the waiter is taking a very long time, right? You sit down, you don't have anything, they didn't give you water, they didn't give you anything. The waiter, you don't see the waiter anywhere, but you see other waiters running around you, walking around you, serving other people. How can you ask one of them what's going on, where your waiter is, why you don't have anything? What's a polite way that you could do that?
Well, I will start saying, excuse me, waiter, uh, could you please help me out with the menu?
Yeah, right. Excuse me, waiter. Could you help me with the menu? Or, for example, you could say something like, "Could you please take my order?" Right? Could you please take my order? Because then that will tell the waiter, oh, okay, this person is ready, right? He wants his food, and maybe he will take your order, or maybe at that point he will find your original waiter to take your order. So I think that's great. Could you please help me with the menu? Could you please take my order? Right? So both of those work really well. What about, let's say that person says, just 1 second, sir, I'll be right back. Okay? He says, just 1 second, sir, I'll be right back. But he doesn't come back. 5 minutes later. How can you fix the situation now? Wilson.
Um, well, uh, I um, I will I will tell to another waiter something like this. Excuse me, waiter. I am waiting for 5 minutes and I don't have my order. Could you please mm, could you please mm, the, could you please help me uh, to to know what what's going on.
Fantastic. Could you please help me to know what is going on? Could you please, or you could just say, could you please help me, right?
Okay.
That works too perfectly. What you said before was perfect, but you could also say, could you please help me, right? At that point, if it's a normal restaurant, if the restaurant has any class, at that point, somebody should help you, right? I mean, you've been waiting for, I don't know, 15 minutes already. One waiter said, I'll be back. 5 minutes goes by, nothing happens, right?
Mm.
And so at that point, yeah. So I like how you started the sentence with excuse me, right? You get their attention by saying excuse me. Now, in the US, a long time ago, people used to say, garçon, like, waiter for waiter. I think maybe in French they still say it, or whatever. Maybe in other cultures they still say it. But in normal conversation, for example, if you want to get someone's attention, you can also say, excuse me, sir, right? Instead of saying, excuse me, waiter, you can also say, excuse me, sir. It's a little bit more polite, maybe. Or, for example, if it's a waitress, if it's a woman, if she's a woman, then you can say, excuse me, ma'am, or excuse me, madam, right? Ma'am is very American. I don't know. I think British people say madam a lot more, you know. Uh, Americans say ma'am, M-A-A-M, ma'am. Excuse me, ma'am, could you please help me with this? Excuse me, sir, could you please help me with this? So that's a very good way to get someone's attention, absolutely. Uh, Emmy, what would you do? Let's say you are in a new city for the first time. Let's say you're in New York City, okay? You're completely lost. You don't know what's going on. You have a map, but you don't know where you are. So, and let's say there's maybe like a policeman walks by. How would you ask the policeman where you need to go or what you need to do?
Mm, okay. I'll uh, show him my map and said, "Excuse me, sir, I'm lost. Can you help me with this map to find my place?"
Mm-hmm. Fantastic, right? If you have a map in your hand, you can use that as a good resource because sometimes it's difficult to explain to somebody where something is, right? You might not even be sure where it is exactly. But if you have a map, you can maybe point like this street. I want to go to this street. Could you help me? Right?
Mm.
That's a great way to do it, right? Wilson, what would you do in that situation? Let's say you're in a new city, you have a map in your hand, you know where you want to go, but you have no idea where you are. So how would you get help for that?
Uh, well, I will talk to anybody that is around me,
Hmm.
and well, I'll ask him or her, um, excuse me, sir or man,
Hmm.
uh, I am lost. Could you please guide me uh, where I am?
Yeah. Or could you please tell me where I am? Right? Or
Hmm.
could you please tell me how to get to XYZ ABC, right? Could you please tell me how to could you please tell me where the nearest bus station is, right? Could you please tell me where the nearest train station is, right? Um, Emmy, how would you get a taxi? Let's say you have to get a taxi in a new city. What would you do? What would you say in order to find a taxi?
Uh,
Taxi.
Uh-huh. You guys can both share it. Yeah, you guys can both say taxi, right? You could say taxi like that on the street, but people might not hear you if it's like New York City, right? So what else could you do?
mm, mm,
I
well,
must sign with my hand.
Uh-huh, yeah, you can always stand by the street, go like that, right? Somebody will come and maybe get you. What about you, Wilson?
uh, um, yeah, I will try to pay to draw the attention from the cap.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You want to draw their attention, right? Sometimes it helps. 3 weeks ago, I was in another country. I was in another city, and when I was with friends, we were maybe four people, and we needed to get a cab. or we needed to get a taxi, and we didn't really know what to do, so we waited, four of us in four different parts of the street. And when one of us saw the taxi, we would call the other three to come and grab the seats, right? So yeah, you have to be creative like that sometimes.
Yeah,
And in United States, I think you can't call them.
Yeah, you can call them too.
Yes, to order a taxi from airport or from your home.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You can call them, they can come and pick you up. It's not something that is always reliable though, because, for example, in my city here in Wisconsin, if you call a taxi, they will say 45 minutes. We have to wait 45 minutes, right? So you wait 45 minutes, they come and they bring three other people in the taxi, right? So you're in a car with three other strangers, and maybe one of you is going to the western part of town, the other person is going to the airport, the other person is going to the northern part of town, to the southern part of town. It's not always very reliable.
Is it the same charge with the normal taxi?
Yeah, it's the
Or
same charge.
special? Uh-huh.
It's the same
I
charge,
was
yeah.
thought that it's extra charge because it's like a special service for you.
Yeah, some places definitely. If it's an airport shuttle, if it's an airport taxi, for example, those are usually more expensive because it's all about the service, right? They want you to feel comfortable. They take your luggage. They usually don't take other people, other strangers, just you in the car from the airport directly to your hotel. So that's a little bit of a different experience, which is why it's a little bit more expensive usually. But in general, though, yeah, that's a good way to think about things. Think about these and based on scenarios. Scenarios are going to really help you guys, right? So we said, for example, that could is a very polite way to start a sentence, right? We can also use the past tense, right? We can also use the past tense to make requests. So let's say, for example, that you are with a friend or with maybe somebody who is a little bit older and you want to be respectful, okay? Let's say you go to the restaurant and in this situation, the person orders something and you think maybe he didn't get what he ordered, right? Maybe he ordered a chicken sandwich and he got a turkey sandwich, okay? Something different, just slightly different. How could you use the past tense in this case, right, to make a polite question, right? You can say many different things. You can say, for example, did you want the chicken or did you want the turkey, right? Something as basic as that. Did you want the chicken or did you want the turkey, right? That way you aren't accusing the person, right? Maybe you made a mistake. Maybe he did order turkey and you heard chicken, right? And you are using the past tense. Did you really order turkey? Or did you really order chicken? You know, same situation. Waiters, flight attendants, anytime, like taxi drivers, this is where you see a lot of this happen, right? So give me an example, Wilson. Maybe you're at a restaurant with somebody and they are, no, actually, let's say you're serving somebody, okay? Let's say somebody comes to your home and there's a lot of people and you see one of the people that you served isn't really touching his food, okay? Maybe he just looks at it, takes his fork and touches it, but he's not eating it. What would you do to fix that situation or to understand what's going on? Let's use the past tense this time.
Okay. Well, I will walk around the person, and I'll say him or her, did you I don't know. Did you?
Did you use a great beginning, right? Did you use a great way to start? What? Okay. So let's say they're not touching their soup. Okay. Maybe they're eating everything else, but they're not eating the soup. Everybody else is loving the soup. Wilson, you make the most delicious soup. Oh my God, it's so delicious. This person isn't touching it. Okay. So what do you do?
Okay, I'll ask him or her. Did you did you uh, didn't did you like the soup?
Yeah, you can start something very simple like that, right? Did you like the soup, right? And then the person will say, if they want to be honest, maybe they'll say, no, maybe, no, I didn't want the soup, I wanted salad, right?
Okay.
So then what would you do in that scenario? Let's say I'm the person. No, Wilson, I actually wanted the salad instead of the soup. What would you say?
Uh, okay. Give me 1 second. I will see what can I give you.
Fantastic. Give me 1 second. I'll see what I can give you, right? I'll see if there's any salad left. I'll see if I can
Yeah.
get you some salad, right?
Yeah.
Perfect, right? Perfect. So now this situation is really that you used to be in the restaurant, you were the person being served. In the past tense, we can think of it as you are the person who is doing the serving, right? You are serving your guests, for example, right? So this scenario makes it a lot easier thinking about that in that situational perspective, right? So Emmy, let's say somebody comes to your home, right? Somebody comes to your home and you make this beautiful kapsa, okay? Everything you can imagine. There's chicken, there's everything, the spices are great, everything is great. One person doesn't touch anything. Looks at the food, looks at you, looks at the food, looks at you, doesn't touch anything. What would you do in that scenario?
Um, Actually, I was willing to asking you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I use this in this sentences to answering your question? Didn't you like it?
Didn't you like it? Fantastic, right?
Is it correct? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can say did you. You can also say didn't you, right? Didn't you like it? Didn't you say you loved soup? Wilson, you
Yes.
could start like that. Maybe it's somebody who's more, maybe it's a friend of yours, right? You can play a little joke. You can be a little funny, right? Didn't you say you liked soup? What's wrong with this soup? You know, depending on how well you know the person. Of course, if you don't know the person, you shouldn't say, "What's wrong with this soup? Why aren't you eating?" You know, that's probably not a good idea. So Emmy, yeah, let's go back to you. What would you say? This person is not touching your kapsa at all.
Okay. Didn't you like the kapsa? It's so delicious.
I know, right? So you could say, "Didn't you like the kapsa?" Right? And then what if the person, so I'm the person, right? Wilson, I'm sending you some pictures of kapsa. This is what Emmy and I are talking about. It's on the right. So
Okay.
it's a rice dish with chicken. It's very popular in the Middle East. So let's say Emmy. Let's say I say, Emmy, actually, I wanted white rice. I didn't want kapsa.
Oh, sorry. I will see if I can give you another dish.
Fantastic. I'll see if I can get you another dish. I'll see if I can give you another dish, right? So that is it. That's exactly what we are looking for, right? Sometimes dealing with polite questions, we have to be very careful because we want to make sure that we are honoring our guests, honoring the people that we're talking to, right? It's a big part of it. And another way that we can ask a polite question, so we have a couple of ways, right? We can use please, we can use could, we can also use can. Can is less polite than could, but you can also say can. You know, can you please close the door? Can you please turn down the music? It's very loud. You know, could you please help me? Those are all examples. We can use excuse me at the beginning of the sentence. We saw that when Wilson was speaking. That was a great way to do it. And also, another way, probably the most polite way in English, is if you start with, would you mind? Would you mind, right? So let me just quickly write this down. Would you mind, for example, let's say, Emmy, let's say you're at a restaurant, okay? This time you're the guest, and you wanted tea, and the waitress brought you coffee, okay? How would you tell the waitress that you really wanted tea using would you mind? It's going to be a little bit more challenging, but let's see if you can do it.
Okay, I I will call him and said, excuse me, sir, would you mind to change this cup to tea cup? I ordered tea already.
Yeah, great. So would you mind changing this coffee that you gave me with tea? I ordered tea originally, right? Or I already ordered tea, right?
Yes.
Perfect, right? Would you mind changing this tea? Or would you mind giving me a cup of tea instead of this coffee? I think I ordered tea, right? That
Yeah.
way you're not accusing the person, and it's a little bit more polite, right? Wilson, let's say you are at a restaurant, and let's say that they charge you much more than the amount. Maybe somebody makes a mistake, right? Instead of charging you for two people, you're with a friend, you and a friend go to the restaurant, they charged you for three people by mistake. Okay? How would you tell the waiter that something is wrong?
Mm, okay.
Let's use would you mind.
Okay. I'll say him. Mm, Excuse me, waiter. Um, I would you mind? Would you mind checking my bill out? I think that there is an error.
Fantastic, fantastic. And then I'm the waiter. Sir, what kind of error do you think?
Well, I think that I was charged mm, m- uh, more than it should be.
Fantastic. I think I was charged more than uh, than it should be, or I think I was charged more by mistake. Right?
By
I
mistake.
think I think I was charged more by mistake because that way you're saying they made a mistake and they didn't do it uh, intentionally, you know, and that's always valuable, right? When we're talking in a very polite sense, we want to make sure that we, for the as long as possible, we want to be as polite as possible, right? So yeah, sir, I think this. Could you please check the bill? I think I was charged extra by mistake. I think
Mm,
I was overcharged by mistake, right?
overtures.
Overcharged by mistake, yeah. And then, depending on the situation, any good waiter will say, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Let me take that right now. I will get it fixed," right? Any good waiter will do that. So uh, that's that, right? That's a good way to think about it. Any questions, guys? I know we spent a little bit longer because this is a conversation-based kind of grammar lesson. Any questions about polite questions? Uh, could, excuse me, please, would you mind, right? These are the key words that we want to use when we make polite
Also,
questions.
pardon me, right?
Pardon me, exactly, right? Excuse me and pardon me, both do the same thing. Both do the exact same thing. Pardon me is more, actually, there's no
French.
difference. There's no difference. I'm sorry, I mean, what did you say?
Is it French word?
Yeah, I
Pardon?
think I think pardon is French originally. Yeah.
Yes.
It is, but it's something that people say very frequently. Pardon me and excuse me are very common. I mean, interchangeable. You can say either one. Yeah. Pardon me is maybe a little bit more formal, even. I think it's actually because it's a little bit more European. I think British people say
Yes.
pardon me more than American people.
And I
American
think
people
rich people.
Rich people too, maybe, yeah, yeah. It
Yes.
has it has a cultural kind of elevation,
Mm.
a little bit more elevated than excuse me. Yeah. So, any questions, guys, about that topic so far?
No.
We're good.
I'm okay.
Wilson, you're good too. Okay, fantastic. Let us take a look at the article today. Then the article's not that long. It talks about something that actually is causing quite an incident in a small country in Central Asia called Kyrgyzstan. Okay, Kyrgyzstan is a very small country between like
Hey, Farhan.
Sorry about that, guys. I
No
was
problem.
disconnected. I was disconnected somehow. I don't know why. In any
Yeah.
case, so Kyrgyzstan is a very small country in Central Asia between Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, whatever. Uh, and people are worried there because a child died from the bubonic plague. Okay, the bubonic plague. The bubonic plague is a disease that we will read about. So here's the article, Huffington Post article, and I am also going to screen share so that you guys can see what I'm seeing on my screen. Let's see here. Alright. Okie dokie. Alright. Do you guys see my screen here?
Yes.
Bubonic plague kills teen in Kyrgyzstan. Right? So bubonic plague. This is a microscope view of the bubonic plague. I think it's a very deadly looking disease. And we will start reading here. A teenager's death in rural Kyrgyzstan was said Monday to have been from the bubonic plague, a conclusion that prompted mandatory testing, quarantines, and tighter border control in the region, according to multiple sources. Exactly how livestock herder Temirbek Isakunov, 15, who hails from a village in the east of the country, contracted the deadly disease is unclear. While some news agencies quoted a Kyrgyz health official saying the youth got the plague from a flea bite, a local newspaper reported that the boy was sickened after eating a barbecued marmot while visiting relatives in southern Kyrgyzstan. 3 more people from the same village as the teen have also caught bubonic plague since his death, officials said, according to the Agence France Presse. Though the outbreak was small, officials leapt into action, quarantining 105 people who had contact with the dead teenager, including doctors and medical staff who treated him, health official Tolo Isakov said, per Al Jazeera. Police guarded the hospitals where the youth was treated, according to Agence France Presse, and around 2,000 people were subject to mandatory tests for the plague. In addition, teams of pest control agents were dispatched to the region to kill and study rodents potentially carrying the disease, British newspaper The Independent reported. The country of Kazakhstan, which is Kyrgyzstan's neighbor, increased controls along the Kyrgyzstan border, according to the Guardian. The bubonic plague, which killed around 25 million people in Europe in the 14th century, is a bacterial infection usually carried by fleas on rodents. It is characterized by swollen lymph nodes, buboes, in the groin and armpit areas. The plague can be treated with antibiotics if the drugs are administered quickly enough, usually within 24 hours. Also known as the Black Plague, the bubonic plague is rare these days. World Health Organization epidemic disease expert Eric Bertherath told the BBC there were only about 400 cases of bubonic plague reported in 2012, about 90% of which were in Africa. The last case of bubonic plague in Kyrgyzstan was 30 years ago, according to Al Jazeera. Kyrgyzstan Health Minister Dinara Saginbayeva told said a bubonic plague epidemic in the Kyrgyzstan region is not likely, per Al Jazeera. The form of the disease in the teenager is not conducive to a plague epidemic, she said. Right? So when we are looking at this disease, right, the bubonic plague, we read in this article that about 600 years ago, in the 14th century, it killed around 25 million people in Europe. And it's caused by a bacterial infection that is carried by fleas on rodents, right? Wilson, what are rodents? What do they mean by rodents here?
Mm, it they could be rats also.
Yeah, right. So rodents are the family of animals that are that are similar to rats, right? So rats, squirrels, mice, right? Those kinds of animals, sometimes they have fleas, and those fleas carry this disease, right? So why is this article important, guys? I mean, Emmy, why do you think this article received so much attention and this child's death received so much attention?
Mm, I think the most important for them, it was 30 years ago, but they have fears to spread another time in the country,
Mm-hmm. It's
even if it's one kids or a little boys with. I think I read that have fiction the doctors to who help uh, the doctors that help that boy. I think he have the um, same disease.
So yeah, what they did actually was that they didn't mention if the doctors had the disease, but they quarantined. So what does quarantine mean? This is a word that we read in the article. What does it mean if you quarantine somebody? Wilson, do you know?
Mm, it seems that maybe people that are probably infected are isolated in some place.
Yes, perfect. People who may be infected, or people who doctors and health people might feel are at danger of being infected. These people are isolated, right? These people are taken from the general population and they are put in special areas, maybe special rooms in a hospital, a special building where somebody can look at them so that in case they have the disease doesn't spread, right? So that's the reason. When
So
you
the doctors didn't take the disease. They're
yeah,
just concerned that that maybe happen.
yeah, exactly. So what the health
Okay.
officials did was they said, who touched this child? Who saw this child in the last, like, 2 weeks, let's say? Everybody who saw him, ate with him, touched him, knew him, close, relative or friend, they probably quarantined. They said, these people may have this infection. We should keep them separate until we know that they are safe, right? So that's what they did with this child and with the friends of this child, the people who helped take care of this child, right? So, Wilson, let's say you are somebody, this is all God forbid because this is not a fun article, it's not a happy theme. But let's say somebody is in the hospital, okay, not bubonic plague, but like whatever other, for some reason they're in the hospital. How would you? It's a very stressful time, right? How would you ask the doctor how your friend or how this person is doing? It's a stressful time, but you want to remain polite. So how could you do that?
Uh, well, I will ask him. Excuse me, doctor. I have uh, well, I could say I have a familiar in that place. Could you please give me some news about my friend or familiar?
Yeah, my friend. So familiar in this case actually doesn't work, Wilson, but what you can say is relative or friend, for example.
Okay,
Right?
relative.
So relative, yeah. So relative would be anybody in your family, anybody like that, and friend would be anybody who's not family but obviously very close, right? So friend or relative, right? In English, in American English especially, we hear loved ones a lot. People you love, loved ones. But you don't actually, in questions, you don't actually say, for example, could you please tell me how my loved one is doing? That sounds very romantic, very, very poetic, right? But you do see that for example, in a lot of times in literature, they say loved ones. Please take care of your loved ones, right? But yeah, in this sense, speaking to someone, absolutely. Relative, could you please tell me how my friend is doing, how my relative is doing, right? So that works out great. Let's say, Emmy, let's say you are a journalist, okay? You're a journalist working in Kyrgyzstan while all of this is happening, right? How would you interview, for example, some of these doctors? How would you figure out how to get to them, how to ask them what is happening? Because, you know, journalists have a very difficult job sometimes. They need to ask tough questions. How would you do that?
Okay. I will say, excuse me, doctor, would you mind to describe that disease for
Hmm.
the for us, please?
Would you mind? Yeah. Would you mind describing this disease for us? Would you give us more information about what is happening, right? And so those are all very polite ways, right? What happens at a press conference? Usually, what happens at a press conference after something very important or something big happens? They have a press conference. And what happens at press conferences, Emmy? Have you heard this before? Press conference?
I'm not sure what is press. I think it's a news, but conference, I don't know. Maybe it's like something meeting Wednesday and other a lot of uh, interview him. They are
Yeah, yeah.
staying in the chairs and he's alone, uh, um, not behind them.
In front of them.
Yes, in front of them,
Uh-huh.
and a lot of them ask him questions for their TV channels or magazines, something like that. Is it?
Exactly, exactly. So, for example, when, you know, like Sultan Obama, when he speaks, you know, people have chairs, all of these journalists sit in front of him. He speaks for maybe 10 minutes, and then the journalists ask him questions.
Yes.
Mr. President, what is happening in Syria, Mr. President? All of this stuff, right? So
Mm.
that is exactly what we are
But
saying
I
here.
think they didn't ask with a polite way.
Yeah,
They just asked questions. They
usually,
don't have time to say it politely.
that's true. Sometimes they don't. I mean, sometimes some journalists are actually very direct with their questions, right? Especially with
Yes.
politicians, they have to be direct because politicians are not nice most of the time either.
And
You know,
clever to run from the questions.
absolutely. They're very good at avoiding the question, right? So that's why journalists have a tough job sometimes. They really are they have to balance the polite with the direct. So let's say, okay, I'm going to make this interesting, guys. So, first of all, do we have any questions about this article, the bubonic plague, this child, Kyrgyzstan? I mean, what's happening there? What do you guys think? I mean, it's rare, right? They said this kid got it by eating a marmot. I don't know what that is, by the way. I have no idea what a marmot is. I need to look that up because I have no idea. Like, what is a marm? Oh, no way, man! I didn't know people did this. So this is like in the U.S. we would call this a beaver. A beaver punk,
Oh,
right? They say that this child maybe ate one of these. This is definitely a rodent.
yes, I think because it's um, around them in their countries, so
Uh-huh.
they hunt them and eat it. I think
Wow,
so.
I can't even like believe that that's the case. I had no idea. I just looked up the marmot right now. Um, in any case, so I mean, does this come as a surprise to you guys that this could have happened? Such a deadly disease in such a remote part of the world?
I think it's normal in these days, because we have a lots of diseases from the cows, from the birds, from a lots of animals. It's from the pigs also. So I think it's normal in these days to
Hmm.
hear about this.
Wilson, what do you think? Do you think did this come as a shock to you? I mean, did you hear about did you learn previously about the bubonic plague, how it killed millions and millions of people 600 years ago, and now all of a sudden it's back, kills one person? Was this a surprise? Like, what was your reaction?
Well, actually, it's sad to hear this kind of news, you know. But here, where the part of the world where I live, it's I can see it's common, this kind of diseases. Even you can say that this kind of diseases were in the past, and you also you couldn't believe it that it is present well at this time. But here it's common, this kind of kind of diseases. And also the the places where you live, it is propense to get this kind of diseases. For example, in a tropical site, there are a lot of mosquitoes, and I don't know, you can get some very rare diseases.
Hmm. Absolutely right. Location is so yeah, Wilson did a great job answering the question, right? Uh, in a very polite way as well. So I think that's absolutely correct, right? Location is a big part of it. Tropical diseases, yellow fever, malaria, right? I mean, mosquitoes, just mosquitoes themselves carry so many types of diseases, right? So, and I think maybe, like, for example, I know in India and, like, Bangladesh, where my family is from, tuberculosis is a major killer, major killer. And tuberculosis, people don't know, it's not like the bubonic plague. I mean, it's not something that, oh, it's historic, but it's killing people every single day. Hundreds of thousands of people maybe have it, and maybe a few thousand are dying every year. And I mean, tuberculosis is 100% treatable, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you take medicine, you have to take medicine every day, I think, but you can suppress this disease. So, I mean, are these the kinds of diseases that you see, for example, in South America in these tropical areas, Wilson, or were you thinking of maybe other ones also?
Yeah, I can say that in India is a big place, a lot of people, a lot of population. And yeah, mm, uh, yeah, I've heard many things from India. There are a lot of diseases like here. You can see the same diseases here, but we are not so much like in India. But yeah,
Hmm.
I can imagine what is happening there also.
Yeah, absolutely. Emmy, what's your take on this? I mean, what in terms of diseases, maybe in the Middle East they're not so prevalent because it's not a tropical environment, and also I would say access to healthcare is actually very good access to healthcare in the Middle East, right? So these diseases are not really present, I guess.
I think it's really if they, as the article says, that if they treatment as quick as they can, it will be not that spread so much to the country. On um, so it's the medical help. If it's they say if they have a quick medical help, that will uh, um, increase the sta- uh, status. No, it's uh,
Increase the likelihood of survival.
yes.
I know, but that was
Decrease.
complicated.
Decrease, not increase. I think decrease. Dec- decrease.
Decrease. Uh-huh.
The opposite of increase.
Yeah.
Um, the um, The
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 danger.
patients, yes, the members of patients,
Okay.
if they take if they take um, a quick medical help, that will decrease uh, uh, the patient's
Sickness. The
members.
person's disease. The person's
Yeah.
sickness, right? So yeah, perfect, right? If you get quick medical help, rapid medical help, then you will be able to decrease the patient's illness, decrease the patient's sickness, and the patient can recover quickly, right? So yeah, this is, I think, I mean, modern medicine, right? Kyrgyzstan, I don't know what the situation is. They said that this boy lived in a small village in the eastern part of the country, right? So probably very small place, very rural place, away from big hospitals or maybe away from the big cities in that country. So that's why maybe this was a bigger problem, right? Uh, so, I mean, would you guys say that this is something like when we read about healthcare, right? We read about these diseases. It seems in this case, the World Health Organization, the United Nations people, and the hospitals, the doctors on the ground, they did a really good job with this case, right? Only one person died, nobody else was affected. You know, what can we do to make this more what can we do maybe as a society, or what can the UN do to help make sure that other diseases also receive this kind of quick response, quick treatment? Is it possible to do that, or is it a dream?
Mm, maybe we can ask to Bill Gates. I think he's doing a very good job with those kind of diseases in somewhere.
Yeah, I think he's working in Africa with malaria especially, right? I think and there are lots of other organizations that you donate $1 and they will buy a net, mosquito net, and they will give the mosquito net to a family in Africa, right? Just the children, even just for the children, they have special cots, special beds for the children, so that when they sleep, the mosquitoes don't affect them, right? I mean, this is an amazing use of money, an amazing use of technology, right? I think it's great. I mean, Emmy, have you heard of something similar? Like Wilson said, Bill Gates, his foundation. What else can we do? I mean, how can we make these deaths from these illnesses how can we decrease these numbers to as low as possible? It's a
I
hard
think
question, I
Yeah, it is. Mm.
uh, actually, I think if we give the people some informations and um, and knowledge how to, for example, cook these mm, animals, or how do they uh, ha- a lots of something it's called
Hygiene.
give yes.
Hygiene, right? Proper hygiene, maybe.
um,
Have you guys heard of hygiene before? Hygiene, for example, means washing your hands before you eat, right?
yes,
Washing your hands after you use the
yes,
restroom. Boiling your water, right? Things like that we consider to be, people with good access to healthcare. We believe in good hygiene, right? So, yeah, Emmy, what were you saying? So about hygiene.
yes, we can give them a lot of hygiene information
We can
uh,
teach
to
them good
pro-
hygiene, right?
to protect themselves uh, to protect themselves for these diseases,
Hmm.
and good knowledge about that and how do they use it or use a lot of things in their real lives.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to add something that
Sure.
I think it's um, a lot of these diseases are actually not so spread and not so killed, but
Not so deadly.
yes, not so deadly, and it's rare actually, but because the economics, they do a lot of news and a lot they uh, increase the um, in media about that about a lot of diseases. So I think it's for commercial things because, as they say, it's just if you take antibiotics, it will be gone.
Mm-hmm.
Here in Middle East, a lots of fears happens for a few members, and they said it's killed, and they make us a lot of make us feel afraid about. I think it's disease about bird. I think
Yeah, bird flu, right?
yes, but actually it's not so deadly as we saw in media.
Mm-hmm.
It just want us to buy a lot of antibiotics and something. It's I think it's not so deadly as they said.
Mm-hmm.
So they lie to us.
Or maybe they have the information, but they are they present it in such a way that they want people to be prepared, but they don't do a good job making the presentation realistic, right? I think there's a lack of realism. There's a lack of realistic news reporting today. Everything
Yes,
is
but it's
sensational.
not killing actually. A
Uh-huh.
lot of doctors say it's not killing disease.
Hmm.
It's flu, but it's power. It's so strong than the normal flu.
Hmm.
But you can protect yourself immediately. That's I think the major point that you
Hmm.
must take cover uh, as fast as you can.
Hmm.
And it's not so deadly as they said.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't um, take their children to schools because of that. A lot of schools were closed. If some baby or some boys or some children's having a few flu, they make close the class and call their families and so it's make the people fear more.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, the media does a lot of sensational, emotional news reporting these days, and some of it is fact, some of it is fiction, some of it is good news reporting, right? What what will get the headline, right? Everybody is worrying about the headline now, I feel like, and it's not realistic reporting as much as we would like, unfortunately. But yeah, I think the same way. I think maybe people, we just all need to take care of each other, I mean. And it makes me sad when I see, for example, that, it's just $1 for to buy this mosquito net for children in Africa, let's say, right? But we spend hundreds of millions of dollars on the dumbest things, like creating, like, I mean, Saudi is probably next in line, but all of these countries are designing the tallest skyscrapers in the world, the biggest amusement park, the biggest roller coaster, the biggest ski resort. I mean, why does it matter? You already, like, for example, Dubai already has everything that you could want in the desert, right? People there have money. I mean, they can, maybe they are doing lots of charity. I don't know. I shouldn't say something that is not true, but the general culture is focusing on the materialistic, the tallest, biggest, largest, fastest, and not focusing on just our own people human beings living in such difficult conditions, children dying from diarrhea. I mean, diarrhea is, you can buy a tablet for, you can buy 10 tablets for $1, and you can kill diarrhea just by having one tablet every 2 hours, right? Or you can go to the hospital, they can fix you very easily. But, I mean, not enough people are doing that kind of work, I feel like. That's what's difficult for me. Wilson, what do you think? I mean, am I just talking senselessly, or does this make sense?
It's okay. I am agree with you, Farhan. Yeah, it's there are sometimes when you only think in money and yourself, and you forget about the other person that are suffering. You
Yeah.
know. Um.
I'm guilty
Yeah.
of that as well. I'm guilty. I don't remember buying a mosquito net for any African child, right? I can talk about it, but I'm guilty as well, right?
Yeah. But I don't know. I think that for help people, you must first help ourselves. So maybe we need some time to sort out many things in our lives, and uh, and maybe in the future we can help these people, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, there's always time, opportunities to do that in the future, right? Especially maybe for young people, right? We don't have a lot of money. I don't have a lot of money, right? So we are trying to save, we are trying to establish ourselves. But once we get to that stage, maybe when we are established and we have some money to share, then we should try to give to other people, right? I think at least that's a goal that we can have for ourselves, right?
Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw a TV show
Uh-huh.
that's take American citizens who don't have insurance and go to a poor country. I don't think where it's in Brazil. I don't remember actually, and they treat them with a very less charge, and
Mm-hmm.
they were crying because they need a lot of treatment, but they didn't get it in United States because it's overcharged.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's a big, big deal in the US, and it's something that's a great idea for a future article that I want to speak to you guys about. Medical tourism, right? We call it medical tourism in the US. The cost of healthcare in the US for people who don't have insurance is criminal, okay? The amount of money that they are charging, it should be illegal to charge a human being, like a human being, that much money. It should be illegal. Like, there are documentaries that say, for example, that, God forbid, if somebody cuts their hand and they lose their fingers, okay, the cost to replace your thumb, just your thumb, is $20,000. Okay, but your index finger, this finger, is 15. So people choose. I don't have enough money. I lost 2 fingers. I have to choose one of my fingers to replace. Maybe get a fake finger, or in English we call it a prosthetic. Prosthetic is kind of a scientific. So a prosthetic finger would cost 15,000 for the index finger, 20,000 for the thumb. So why get the thumb when it's $5,000 more, right? And this is in the United States. We call ourselves a first world country. But our own citizens, people here, have to choose and make these decisions sometimes when it comes to their healthcare, right? People have lost their homes. I'm sure, Emmy, you saw maybe in this movie, people lose their homes to pay for their medications, to pay for
Yes.
their surgeries, So that's why they go to countries like Brazil, they go to countries like India, where the doctors are very skilled, and they charge, instead of $5,000 in the U.S., they'll do it for $500. I mean,
Yes.
Mm.
completely different world, right? So now medical tourism, very popular. they go to Singapore. Singapore has a great healthcare system, right? Singapore, sometimes they go to Europe also. I mean, it's sad, right? It's sad what the situation is when it comes to healthcare in the U.S. And I mean, if the U.S. is like this, then imagine maybe the rest of the world, where if you don't have money, I guess it's difficult everywhere, right? But in the U.S., it's this difficult. Imagine maybe a country like India, if you don't have money, you're better off just not even trying, I feel. You will just be like, you'll just be adding more sadness to your life if you are trying to get help in a society like India if you don't have any money. Because nobody will even look at you if you don't have money, right? Like
Yeah.
if you go to a public hospital, forget about it. You will be in line, you will die before they see you.
Mm.
That's how it is in India. If you go to a private hospital, you must have a lot of money to be able to, see a good doctor and all that stuff. So, and I don't even know about Africa. I have no idea how Africa is, right? People always talk about Africa as being, the most the most needy, right? Development-wise, it needs the most resources, the most help. I have no idea what it's like in Africa, So it's very
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah, it is.
Are you guys bored? We are past
No.
class day, the class time, but I was just I wanted to see how you guys felt, because healthcare is something that I really enjoy. I work in healthcare in the software part of healthcare, but it's something that we see so much of that we don't. I don't know how many people actually pay attention. Maybe we just block it out, right? We see the news and we read these stories, but we just block it out. Like, it's not affecting me, it's not in front of me. I can forget about it. You know,
Mm.
I'm guilty of that, right? So,
Yeah.
anyway, guys. Emmy, do you have anything to say, or Wilson, either of you guys? Otherwise, we can say goodbye, I guess.
Mm.
No, it's
Thank you,
it's
Farhan. It's
it's
Yeah,
good,
you're
lovely.
welcome.
Farhan. Good
Yes,
thoughts. Thank you for that.
yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's always a pleasure to speak to you guys. And once again, class tomorrow night. So if you guys have any questions, once again, don't hesitate if you find me. For example, if you need to ask me something on Facebook, you can add me. I can help you guys with your English learning outside of these classes as well. So consider me a resource, and I'll be glad to help.
Oh, it's good to know that. Thank you, Farhan.
Absolutely, Wilson. And Emmy, take care, both of you guys, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow then.
Okay, see you
Inshallah.
tomorrow, Farhan.
Alrighty.
See
Yep.
you tomorrow.
Take care, guys. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, Amy.
Bye. Bye, Wilson.
Bye bye.
That's
If
really
I
good
saw,
too.
yes, if I saw myself good, perfect after a few weeks,
Yeah,
maybe I will return back and read it again.
absolutely. And Huffington Post, some of these magazines are much, much more challenging than the other magazines, for example.
Yes, you told me a lot of two kinds, I think, of newspaper.
Yeah,
Um,
I love the two magazines. I love the Christian Science Monitor. Christian Science Monitor is very good. Let me write the name here. Also, I like the Huffington Post, right? So both of those magazines, the Financial Times also, very, very good magazine. I used to really like The Economist, but The Economist, after reading many of their articles, they don't have proof for what they say. A lot of the pieces they sound like just opinions and no facts, or limited facts, kind of like just people writing what they feel without looking at something objectively from a third-party perspective, So that magazine I don't like so much, but Christian Science Monitor, Huffington Post definitely, the Financial Times, Wall Street Journal is pretty good. New York Times. Those are good, but those are much more academic.
Mhm.
If you want normal Americans, conversational English in written form, I think Huffington Post is the best, absolutely the best. Um, if you can understand everything you see in Huffington Post, then you can speak very comfortably with anybody on the street in the U.S., with young people, with the college population, uh, you know, or you can understand them also. You can not only speak with them, you can understand them, have those vocabulary, have that similar understanding of the vocabulary also. So yeah, there's some benefit in that, of course. So let's see. I'm gonna just put these down for you guys. Hey, Yemi, how's it going?
Yes, hello. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. How's everything in Saudi today?
It's not start. The day is not started, I think.
That's true. It's just it's like 6 o'clock there, right? It's very early.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Nice.
How
Nice.
how are you?
Good. Today
Farhan.
was
Yes,
so long.
Farhan.
Yani, today was
Yes.
a very long day. We had I had so much work. I woke up at maybe 5:30, went to work at 6, and then didn't come home until 8:30, just 1.5 hours ago. So, yeah, it was a busy day today, but that's life.
Mm.
Nothing crazy. Hey, Wilson, how's it going?
Hey, Farhan. I'm
Good to
doing
see
well, thank
you.
you.
How was your day today?
Um, it was good. And how about you?
Yeah, it was good. I was telling Emmy I had a very long day, so finally I'm getting to relax a little bit, just not doing work, just speaking with you guys to me is not work, it's fun. So after many long hours, I'm finally relaxing. So it's good. It was a nice day. How was your day?
Um, Something busy, but yeah, I was leveraging my free time.
Nice. It's good to leverage free time. Did you take a number of other classes on Colingo?
Yeah, actually, I took 2 classes.
2 classes before this one, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Nice. Because you try to, I think you said your goal was to take 3 per day.
Yes.
Nice, nice. That's really good. Emmy, do you have a goal of how many classes do you usually take per day on Colingo?
It's a long. It's many classes actually because I didn't start my work yet.
Uh-huh.
So as possible as I can.
As much as
Uh,
possible?
yes, as much as possible. Uh, I take classes. I think it's 5 classes or 6
5 or
a
6 a
day.
day. Oh, wow. So that's a significant, that's
Yes.
6 hours of classes, 5, 6 hours of
Yes.
classes. Yeah.
But I didn't show improvement for myself, I think, until
I
now.
think you showed improvement in my class, and at least in the our class that we have every night. You know, I mean, it's not going to be something instant, right? It's going to take time, maybe a
Yes,
few weeks, a few months, maybe even.
yes, maybe I think that.
Yeah. The
Uh,
more you speak, the more you'll get better.
yes. I hope your articles today is not like yesterday.
Which
It
one?
was so
Oh,
hard.
the
Yes,
African
like
design.
yes.
Yeah.
I said, oh, Farhan, why you choose this? Your articles are very interesting and very nice and very easy. Yesterday it was very hard to understand it.
Sometimes I throw in some hard ones also, right? To keep it interesting, to keep it exciting,
Yes.
you know? Yeah, I
I
think
think
today's is
today
much
is
easier.
it's hard today, but it's a challenge.
Yeah, definitely.
We must face it.
I don't want you guys to think I'm easy. Just, oh, let's go to Farhan's class. He's always easy, you know? But that can't happen. But no, I think most of the time, especially yesterday with the African class, I think it was interesting. I mean, people don't talk about that kind of stuff very frequently, which makes it more exotic, more different, and I don't know. Sometimes I think that's a challenge. So it's good to have that.
Yes, I like that you always give us interesting information and a lots of information and knowledge about the world.
Yeah.
But it was hard yesterday. Lots of vocabularies and uh, I didn't understand it.
What?
I just
So
make
was
my opinions about general things.
Yeah, that's good though. That's always a first step. That's always the first step, right? So if an article is difficult for you or if an idea is difficult, right, begin by thinking about the general idea, right? So it was about art. You saw some of the pictures, right? You saw some of
Yes,
the things that we were talking about. And if you can make initial opinions or initial thoughts about those things, maybe when you have time, if you want, you can go back and you can find what some of
yes,
those different vocabulary words mean, things like that.
Yes, I save it my computer
Yeah.
for future